This is reading project number 12, Subjectivities. And so and this is over In a Grove by Ryunosuke Akutagawa. And so, first is, which narrative do you trust the most? So I trust the wife's narrative, the wife of the samurai, and I trust hers because I feel like to be able to tell what actually happened, especially something so traumatizing, I feel like it's the most trustworthy because that's very vulnerable, if that makes sense. And though we're not really sure who actually did it, and hers can be a little skewed like all the others, and to be fair, it was a traumatic event for her, so I feel like yes, it could be a little skewed, but I would still trust hers the most out of all of them. And so one thing, oh no, this is it. The first part that kind of stuck out to me was, beneath the cold attempt in his eyes, there was hatred, shame, grief, and anger. I don't know how to express my heart at that time. Reeling to my feet, I went up to my husband. And then she says, Takejiro, I said to him, since things have come to this pass, I cannot live with you. I'm determined to die, but you must die too. You saw my shame. I can't leave you alive as you are. And I feel like it just focuses on how shamed she was and how distressed as well she was, and how vulnerable, and how her story was so focused on that. And having to tell that as a confession to somebody must have been overwhelming, for sure. And I feel like there's a lot of conviction in her words and shame. And so I also feel like that's why it's real, because those are real emotions that you feel. And then throughout all three passages, it's quite obvious as to what happened to her and how she was basically shamed. That is evident. And so you would think I would also trust a person that the one thing that is solid throughout all stories is that happened to her, and I would trust her the most because she is the victim of that. So I feel like that's also what makes it more believable. So then, which narrative do I trust the least? Definitely the murderer. Throughout Tajamaru, I feel like his was very, I don't know, it's hard to trust a murderer for sure, as well as somebody who confesses outright to what they did. And but it's not necessarily the confession part, but the part how throughout his story you can see that he's always smiling, and it's kind of like a snake, if that makes any sense. I feel like the way he's talking and explains it is like a snake that's like proud of what he did. And so like a cheerful smile, like this is things that are said, gloomy excitement, a defiant attitude. Let's see what else. An ironical smile. Like everything, the way he talks is so filled with pride, and it's hard to trust somebody like that. Only because you can see he's so prideful about doing something, but it's like making it also hard to believe because because of how prideful he is, and how, yeah, like I said, he acts like a snake in that sense. So that it, and throughout his nature, I mean, him lying outright to the people he killed also shows that he is a liar and that is something he would do. So I feel like that alone is kind of evidence. It's just the act itself, as well as how he lied through to the victims, as well as his attitude. But that's just me. What do you think my choices about my own subjectivities? So I feel like I trust narratives more so that are more emotionally vulnerable rather than self-glorifying. And obviously, I feel I do tend to base a reliability on tone and presentation. So how he talked about the story kind of made the murderer seem less likely to actually be the one to do it. With like the tone and also like how he had excitement, smiling and everything like that, it made it hard to believe, rather than the woman who was frantic but also vulnerable to the situation that happened to her, and how it's hard to talk about that and confess that to somebody, and she actually did it. So I feel like that is what I based it off of and what made me choose to believe the most. But I do believe that every single story in some way is skewered, but she just happens to be the one I trust the most. But that's my reading project.